Hey everyone, welcome to the For the Love podcast. Got a fun one for you today. You may have heard me say that I have a boyfriend. Well, he is with me today on this show. And we recorded this in person together because we are at MeCamp. We're going to talk about that in just a second. In case you just were born this morning and you are new to this space and to me, let me tell you about him. Tyler, first of all, this is my boyfriend of 3.5 years. It's a really long time. He is an activist. He's an author. He's an actor. He's a storyteller. Maybe your first connection point with him was his viral video, Before You Call the Cops. That was like a cultural touchstone around race, humanity. He is very, very beloved for good reasons, for many good reasons. His humor, he's so funny. His heart, his work, his creativity. His books are amazing. They're like meaningful and hilarious and irreverent and wild and all over the place in terms of musical theater references. Just, I can't explain that. You'll just have to read it. His first book was I Take My Coffee Black, Reflections on Tupac, Musical Theater, Faith, and Being Black in America. And then he wrote a kid's book called A Door Made for Me. And then his most recent book is This Changes Everything, and it's a national bestseller, and you'll see why if you haven't already read it or listened to it. As mentioned at the end of this show, listening to the audio version is 100% the way that you would probably want to consume his books, because he reads them and he's so funny, and there's all this like wild extra stuff in there and footnotes, and it's a blast. Anyway, he's the best. This month, we are talking a little bit about vulnerability, particularly. This is a theme that's always been near and dear to me. It has been the soil in which every bit of my growth has ever occurred. And if you know Tyler, you know he is a master at this. He is funny and entertaining, but he is soulful and honest and tender. And so today he and I are having a conversation, among other things, about what it really means and costs to live with courage and with honesty, with vulnerability, and why it's worth it. It's fun. We talked so long that we're probably gonna have to break this up into 2 parts. Sorry. This is our problem. This is our chronic problem when we get together. We got a million things to talk about at all times, and we never run out of fuel. So, come laugh with us today, listen in, learn with us. Hope you enjoy this. Here is my guy, Tyler Merritt. Welcome to the For the Love podcast, MeCamp edition. MeCamp edition, Jen and Tyler edition.
Yes.
Co-host alert, guest alert edition.
Co-host and guest?
What I really meant to say was guest co-host alert. That's what I meant.
Okay.
Hi, welcome to the show.
I'm so glad to be here.
We've got a whole episode coming in hot for you. But we're going to start by telling you a little bit about MeCamp. As I have mentioned to you, I guess, I don't know how many times today. Today is the last day of MeCamp.
And what you need to understand about Jen, when really anything that's an event type deal in her life, say that the event is going to be a week. Say she's going to travel to Africa for a week. On day 1, she begins getting sad about day 7.
That's right.
So we are now on the actual last day of MeCamp, but Jen has been being sad about the last day now for quite some time.
I was sad on the second day that I got here.
Yeah.
On July 2nd. Having taken it in for what it is, which is better than advertised, to be honest.
To be fair, what you all can't see, if you're watching any of the visual with this podcast, is right next to us is the edge of the world, basically. Is right next to us is the ocean as far as our eyes can see.
Yes.
And when I tell you that it's right next to us, it's like right off camera over here to the side.
Yeah.
It's
just ocean.
It's just ocean, and it's spectacular. And I can understand why nobody would want to leave this space.
I can too. And for those of our visual guests, you might notice this is not noteworthy in Tyler's case because this is his like general out uniform, but we are both wearing sweatshirts. Long sleeve sweatshirts, and that's appropriate. It's it is cool. Let me just, you know what? Siri, what is the weather today?
I'm going to get 61.
Oh, it's not going to say it because it's on mute, but it's high of 63. Not a cloud in the sky. And so my feelings about leaving are sincere because guess what? I'm going to do again. Guess what? Back to the weather app. And I'm going to tell you right now what the weather is in my home. And that is 98 degrees.
Good band. Good band.
That is not the same.
Let me tell you what it is.
It's not the same. What is it in Nashville? Okay.
Let's see if I can find it here. 88 degrees. Not bad.
Chilly.
Yeah.
That's 10 degrees warmer if you specialize in math or cooler.
I mean, but you're in Texas, so that's just crazy.
You're right. Anyways.
But the moral of the story is that here it's in the low 60s and feels incredible. And it's about as beautiful as you can imagine any place being.
That's right. That's honestly true. And yesterday we went up north to Depot Bay, and it was at Tyler's suggestion.
I was like, let's go somewhere you haven't been yet.
Let's have a field trip. And this is a deep cut for Oregon people, but I've only been as north as Newport and as south as Florence, and Yachats is literally in between the two. So we went north of Newport yesterday. We went to Depot Bay, and then Tyler's like, that looks like it says whale watching tour. Let's get on that boat. And so we did, and we were next to the whales.
Yeah, like scarily next to the whales.
They were paying us never no mind.
Way too close for black people to be close to whales. It was for black people comfort. It was not good. I'm just saying.
Why are black people more afraid of whales than white people?
Intelligence.
Because you're more intelligent than white people?
When it comes to sea creatures. When it comes to sea creatures, yes. Oh my gosh. Do you know that black guy that got ate by the shark?
I see what you're doing.
No, you don't.
I see what you're doing.
You know, because there hasn't been.
I see what you're saying. But
right. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, that probably is the same reason that, like, there wouldn't be like a scary movie genre if it was just left up to black people, because black people would be like, I see that this house is haunted with a devil. Let's just leave.
Let's just not be here.
Well, how about let's just not go in the door and peek around?
Exactly. Exactly. And I'll be honest, when I was on the boat, you've taken me on boats twice now.
At MeCamp.
At MeCamp. The first time we almost died, even though you always say that we didn't, we almost did.
We 100% did.
We almost died.
This is
we
insanely
were in
hyperbolic.
essentially like a canoe.
That's not also true. We were in a boat with a motor. And
not much bigger than a canoe.
I'll post a picture and I'll let you see.
But what you're not going to be able to experience is how we ran over full-on rocks. Like we were too close to the shore, and the guy who was hosting us, who we didn't know, who we met there, because you just jump into boats with people when they invite you, I guess, on MeCamp.
It's the spirit of MeCamp.
Yeah, the spirit of MeCamp almost got us killed.
It didn't. But we did go on that boat, and that was up in Minnesota, like on a little lake somewhere, and I don't remember the name of it, but what was the other one?
Yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I've been on a boat on all MeCamps.
And you wouldn't have been if it wasn't for me yesterday.
You're right.
Yesterday, I was the boat guy.
You completed the boat cycle for MeCamp.
I did. And because I knew that you would want a boat. And I was kind of like, I was curious.
You were curious.
I was curious. I just didn't realize that the whales were going to be
that close.
So close to us, man.
I'm going to put up some videos, and you can see that I understand that you wouldn't trust our retelling, our reporting of it, since Tyler said we almost died in Minnesota, because that's untrue. But in this case, we were feet away from the whales. And do you remember they said, I could get this a little bit wrong, but I think that our Captain Brian, said that the whales were 95 tons. Isn't that what he said?
I don't remember.
95 tons. So anyway, I'm just saying that was fun. And we've eaten a lot of food, and I'm so happy that you got to finish out MeCamp with me here. We both leave tomorrow, as mentioned, devastating. But I'm happy you missed MeCamp last year because cancer.
Yeah, it's cancer.
And that was a real bummer.
It was.
It was a real bummer.
I feel like I made up for it because I've been here a minute, and I just can't see last year being this beautiful.
Yeah. Well, you're right. It's different. It was different, beautiful, but this is phenomenal. Okay, so that's enough. That's that. So now you know that we are spending an hour of our last day here with you because we want to. Okay, so we are actually going to have a whole real conversation. We are sort of a lot of the themes around the show over the course of the next 2 to 3 months as Awake kind of rolls out and we start hosting conversations that are relevant and adjacent to that story. A lot of what we are discussing is what it means to be really vulnerable in the world. And this is going to be an interesting conversation. We didn't prep each other on this, by the way, so we're just going to see what we get here. But we approach that in some ways the same and in some ways different. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to hear what some of the things that you say today. What does it mean to be vulnerable on a handful of levels? And in fact, I just told Tyler over lunch, not 2 hours ago, that I was for another reason, having a bit of a vulnerability hangover today, from, sharing essentially the first line of the book for the first time yesterday in video. And some of you guys saw that if you follow me on socials. And so this is a real conversation that affects both of us and is current. And so we thought, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. And we are, again, not identical around this. So this will be an interesting conversation. Let's jump into it. By the way, if you don't have an answer to this, we'll just skip it. Let's just see how this goes.
But let me also give a little bit of placement too.
Okay.
I'm currently have been for the past month or so on the summer book tour of my book, This Changes Everything, which is deeply personal, having to do with my cancer journey. And Jen is kind of rallying up for the release of Awake, which is deeply personal, a completely different way.
Yeah.
Both incredibly vulnerable in different ways. My vulnerability has been kind of put in front of people as of recent, which yours will be when you go on tour, which buy your tickets now, they may be sold out. So that just to give a little bit of a placement for this kind of conversation.
Yeah. Great. Okay. What is the most awkward moment you've ever had because you decided to be really, maybe even brutally honest instead of polite? Where you had a moment, there was a fork in the road and you're like, I can zig right and just kind of keep this down in a manageable space, or I could zig left, say what's true and hard, and then and so maybe awkward isn't even the right word. Maybe just consequential.
Okay. Also, we haven't covered these questions yet, so these are just kind of off the dome here.
Yeah.
I could go a lot of directions with this, but I'm going to very specifically go with making the choice to tell the story. I very easily could, in my last book, I could have just said, I ended up having a really personal surgery where associated with a urologist. And we could have moved on from that.
And you know who wish you would have done that is Beth, your editor.
My editor.
That was Beth's deepest wish.
Is that I would have done that.
Yeah.
But instead, one, because I just thought the scenario was just hysterical. And two, I knew that I wasn't alone as somebody who had to go through super personal surgery moments. And I thought that the world might be a little bit better if we were able to freely talk about these things that were happening.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And in my very specific case,
sure,
I had to essentially go to a urologist and they had to probe my penis. And that's essentially what happened. Now, in the book, I tell a much longer version of it. See what I did there? Longer.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Version of But what happened with that, though, is my transparency on telling this very specific story.
Sure.
That I chose to be more vulnerable with and to be more honest with, for consequentially thinking that people would be able to relate to. That worked. And I've had multiple people say to me, thank you for not walking around this thing that either I've had to go through or something really, really similar. And you've taken something that could be embarrassing, we could be afraid to talk to, and it's made me feel less alone.
I just don't know you to be an embarrassed person about stuff.
I mean,
so it's not surprising. I mean, at one point, editor Beth was like, is there a way that you could say penis less?
Yes. Just
less times, less of it, less penis in the book. Is there an alternative world in which there's less penis?
So anytime I call it anything but a penis, it's because someone said, can you use the word penis less?
That's right. And so I don't remember what some of the monikers were.
Whatever they were.
Sure.
But it was really, I wasn't trying to say it a ton. I was really just trying to tell this vulnerable story.
Sure.
Which I think that kind of answers the question. And it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing, but also hysterical because the nurse had said to me in this hugely thick, like country accent, she was like, you just have a tiny pee hole. Right. And it's a story.
There's no way to not include that.
I told her in the moment.
Gold.
I told her in the moment. I said, if I ever write a book about this, you are going to be in it.
Yeah. Listen, you know me, anything for the bit. And so what are you supposed to do? Leave that out?
Right.
Get serious. Okay. That was a good one, baby.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the next question. What is the hardest truth you have ever told yourself? Oh, this is going to be interesting. I want to hear what you have to say about this.
I have a lot of those, but I would probably say I had to get to a point where I was okay with forgiving myself for things that I thought were just the worst and the most horrible. And I did a lot of things growing up, and two people that, in retrospect, probably, they weren't the worst thing in the world, and they weren't things that are going to put me in jail or anything like that, but that were just selfish, and I treated people badly, and I carried that weight for such a long time. And one of the hardest things that I had to deal with telling myself is that it's okay to forgive yourself. It's okay to move forward. You deserve things in life, although maybe you haven't been the best person at times. And as I were to get older and older and older, it would become easier and easier to forgive myself. But it was hard to be able to have that conversation with myself of saying, it's okay. And you deserve to live an okay life, even though are caught in kind of the guilt of how you've treated people over the years.
That's good.
And it's true.
That's good. That's a good answer. Good job, baby.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Am I going to get to ask you questions?
Yeah. We'll get there. Let's say, let me phrase this question in a way that makes sense. If you got one free pass, you get a free pass.
Sure.
On like the vulnerability spectrum. So here's all the ways that you could be vulnerable with yourself, with your partner, with the world, however, whatever. Which one of these would you want to use your free pass on? Because you're like, I can't do. That's just, for me, that feels whatever. Like whatever. Would it be, are you unwilling to cry in public? I know that's not it. Is it the vulnerability and like admitting you were wrong?
Sure. What is the thing that I don't want to be vulnerable
What is the thing
about?
that you would, when it goes, this would be a vulnerable choice to make, and you go, here's my free pass because I'm not doing that?
Easy.
Oh.
Talking about my family. I would say culturally and historically, Black folks tend to keep stuff within their family. Right.
I see what you're saying. You're saying talking about your family in a way that isn't necessarily glowing.
Right. Well, for example, most people, if you've read anything I've ever written, know who my mom is and you know who my dad is.
Yep.
And a lot of people would say that they come out pretty shiny. You know, my dad may be a little bit more dull than my mom, but, you know, my life hasn't always been radically shiny. Especially when it comes to family or growing up. Yep. But if someone were to sit down and say, okay, we need you to be vulnerable about the most personal things having to do with your mother and your father and you being the only child and what that was like in that household, tell it now. I would use my free pass. And that also, I think, bleeds back into the being able to forgive myself and be able to have the understanding that as we all grow older, we get wiser.
Sure.
You know?
Yep.
And like I want to be clear that my parents weren't the most horrible, but also even me saying that is my way of trying to be as least vulnerable as I can.
Yeah.
Be like, I don't want you to get the wrong idea.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Even there, you're trying to put like limits.
Even then,
I'm
trying to put limits on what I'm trying to say. So I would say that's where that would come in.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay. So most people know this about you. You're kind of a multi-hyphenate. You are a writer. You are an actor. You have a JOB job in Nashville. You know, you're writing a play. You've got a lot of interesting facets to what it is that you do in the world. So from a performance standpoint, from all the different ways that you've been a performer, what's your most embarrassing moment as a performer? Do you have one? I'm trying to think if I know the answer to this.
I'm trying to think if I think I told this story in I Take My Coffee Black or it got cut out. But it all started when I was very, very young to this is when I decided that just because you can doesn't mean you should. And it was back in the day in my high school, pre-high school days, right when I was about to go in high school.
Okay.
Back when I used to rap. I was in a talent show.
Sure.
With my...
Did we say what grade or what?
I was in 8th grade.
Oh, 8th grade.
I was in 8th grade. Yeah. And the reason why this is important, because it's stayed with me for forever. And it's has set up some future things so that I would not be this embarrassed.
Okay.
At the time, I was in a rap group called, get ready for this, we were called the Original Beat Boys. Okay?
Jeez.
Just stop. We were the originals. Okay?
Sure.
Don't laugh.
Yeah.
We were the,
no, I believe
there would
that.
have been no beats without us boys that were the original. And so
future of hip hop and
yeah,
all
it's
that.
really the future
Yeah.
of hip hop.
Okay.
And so this was back in the time where you would dance and rap at the same time, and there were three of us. It was myself, friend Mike, and my friend James. Interestingly enough, as I would grow up older, my best friends would be Mike and James, but not them.
Oh, that's funny.
It is funny.
But these are the OGs.
These are OG eighth graders.
Literally.
Us three black dudes. James went by Green Eyes because he's a black dude with green eyes. You know how it was in high school. And I was the main rapper, but I could also dance. And so I rapped last because I was like the best MC of the three. And, you know, right before I went on to go and rap, guys, I just because you can doesn't mean you should. I went and I grabbed the microphone and I was like, I said to the microphone, I was like, y'all ready? Now you have to imagine middle school, full auditorium, everybody hyped up. I'm all like, y'all ain't ready. Y'all ready for how crazy it's about to get in here? And I have everybody like, yeah. I'm all, wave your hands from side to side and all that, right? And I'm like, I'm going to dance before. So I go and I put the microphone on the stand and I'm, you know, popping and locking. And there was this thing that you do where it's called the worm, where you would jump up in the air and then you would come down.
Bruh, we know the worm.
Right. You would come down onto your hands. Right.
And like the slow
on your
belly.
on your belly, right. So I decided, which I could do this normally, but in this moment I jumped.
Yeah.
And instead of my hands coming down first, my chin came down first.
Darn it.
And you need to know that the impact of my chin on the ground rocked the entirety of the room. Like, I'm sure in retrospect, there was some teacher that was like, I don't know if he's okay.
Sure.
Right. But in the spirit of it must go on, I just remember in that split second kind of looking over and I could see my cousin out of my side eye, Tisha, who had her hand over her mouth like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, maybe nobody really saw this. So I get back up, finish my rap, put it back on the microphone, and it's done.
Okay.
And then I go to get on the bus to go home.
Sure.
And nobody sang a word on the bus.
No.
Right. And then finally.
The OG Beat Boy
the
really
original Beat Boys.
shit the bed.
And then nobody saying anything on the bus when I walk on the bus to the back of the bus. And then finally my cousin was like, you busted your chin. And everybody started. So
they did see it. They did see it after all.
You could not have seen it. Everybody saw it. Here I am as a grown man talking about the busting my chin story.
Sorry about that.
Well, here's what it did in the midst of all the things that I would end up doing in life is it really made me go, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
Like, could have just left the worm out.
I could have let the worm out.
Just let the beat do what it does.
You edit yourself. This is when editing began.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
You know?
That was a hard lesson.
It was a hard one, man.
Baby, when I was in 6th grade, we had a talent show, and I convinced my friend Christy Ducey to do a duet with me, and it was called Blue Jeans. And so we wore matching.
Like singing.
I'm going to sing it for you right now. Okay. And so we were going to do it was some choreography, and we had matching outfits, and we had to, this was real fun. We practiced for the talent show every day for a week during lunch, and everybody did who was a contestant.
Sure.
We ate our lunch in the cafeteria, which had a stage, and rehearsals were during lunch. So we got so much star time. Like, rehearsals also counted. The whole cafeteria was in there watching us rehearse. So we got a lot of fans.
Sure.
And we sang our song, and it was like, blue, 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 blue jeans. Give me my blue, blue, blue. You can see our part.
Yeah.
Blue, 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 blue jeans. Give me my blue.
Yeah.
Wear them easy. Wear them lean. Give me my blue.
Oh, got it.
Wear them
Got it.
Wear them clean. Give me my blue.
We all understand.
Baby crazy, but I've just got to have my blue, 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 blue.
We get it. We all understand how this song goes now.
We won 2nd place.
So is that the whole story?
Yeah.
The whole story is that you had a successful singing career in middle school, and I just talked about busting my chin.
I'm sorry. Your failure reminded me of my victory. And so
Why?
I'm sorry.
This story did not go anywhere
I understand
damaging. You were literally just like, let me go back and tell you about when I sang in middle school.
When me and Christy do say 1 second place singing Blue Jeans.
I would tell you this. I would pay so much money to see a picture of you two.
God, me too. Where is the footage?
I'm sure your dad probably hasn't.
No,
somewhere.
it was before then. This was the olden times. Oh my God. I would literally pay American dollars to have a video of Blue Jeans.
Man.
Okay. Anyway, I'm sorry that went so poorly for you. I can't relate.
No, you obviously
relate.
were really sad.
Let's come back to, I've jumped the shark on our theme. Let's come back to it. Okay. Obviously, even though it's hard to say, vulnerability it's buzzy. You know, it's had about a decade long moment in the zeitgeist. I remember when we first started talking about that, and I was like, what the? So this is not new, this idea. Brene brought it to the top rung of the ladder, teaching us how to be vulnerable and its power. So I'm curious if you kind of strip back all the stuff that's been attached to it for the last 10 years or so, I don't know, what does it mean to you? What does it mean to you? Like, I will be a person who is willing to be vulnerable. And I guess in any context, I won't put a limit. That doesn't necessarily mean public facing, but it could be, whatever you think.
So on this tour, surprisingly, I open up almost every speaking engagement I have with what we call the talk before the talk, right? Mm-hmm. Which I establish, like, there's a high possibility that I may cry during whatever. And I usually set that up because whether or not I'm going to or not, there's the possibility is always there. And it tends to be when I tend to talk about my mom or I tend to talk about the kids that are in my life that I've watched grow up. But the reason why I give that talk before the talk is because I'm aware that it's not every day that most people see a 6'2" black man with dreadlocks crying in real life, right? Mm-hmm. And on this tour, of course, people will come up afterwards, and especially men. All the men will come up and say, thank you for being so open. Because there's so many times in my life where I've chosen not to be and I have regretted it. Or the only time that I could be open would be in in my own moment or by myself. And I wouldn't choose to be open in front of other people. Therefore, it would cost me. And I bring all that up to say, I have never regretted, not a single moment in my life of being transparent about how I feel emotionally with somebody. And whether it's in public on a stage, whether it's side by side with somebody, whether it's to my parents, whether it's to my nieces or nephews, I have never regretted being able to say, this is exactly how I'm feeling right now. Whether it is sad, whether I'm feeling hurt, whether I'm feeling overjoyous, whether I think something is absolutely funny that maybe not funny to somebody else. Vulnerability has never kicked back at me in a negative way. And so being vulnerable is like a muscle, right? It's not something that, especially men, just wake up to every day and they go, today I'm just going to be honest about how I feel about the world, or it's not a normal everyday thing, especially if that vulnerability doesn't lean towards overly masculine.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's really easy. For example, here's a great example of books. When men are writing books, they're oftentimes how-tos.
Yeah.
They're oftentimes, this is how I became great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're rarely opening up a book and it's starting off with a guy going, my life was horrible, and ending by going, it wasn't a much better, but thanks for taking this trip with me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Men don't tend to want to do that.
Yeah.
But I think the world would be better if we did.
Yeah, I do too.
I think our kids would be raised better. I think it would get rid of a lot of this toxic masculinity. And I think it would bring men closer to women, too. Because you all tend to be so much better than that than we are. Not to stereotype, but you know what I'm saying?
Sure. I'm curious if all of that translates to what it has been like for you to be in a relationship with me. So when you put vulnerability into a relationship like ours, like an intimate, like partnered relationship, because it had been a lot of years before me that you had like one long-term person.
Sure.
Does that feel different than, you know, this other kind of category of vulnerability?
I think when it comes to being in a romantic relationship with somebody, I think you can get nervous about vulnerability sometimes because you, in my case, one of the things I love about our relationship, even though we are wildly honest with each other, we're also really easy. Like our relationship is pretty easy.
Yeah.
Because we're so honest. We're both down to earth. We've seen some things and we're easy. So I think it can be sometimes difficult being vulnerable when I feel like my vulnerability might make the relationship harder. You know what I mean? On any level.
Like you see it as a possible burden?
Yeah, right. Like if I'm going to be really honest or vulnerable about this very specific thing. In my mind, if I'm going, this is going to take a situation or scenario that could be easy and make it a little bit more complicated. I tend to want to kind of pull away from that kind of vulnerability, although I don't think it's going to affect us negatively per se.
Yeah.
I think it just could make it a little bit harder. So it makes me go, do I need to bring this up or do I not need to bring it up? When in reality, keeping something from you isn't good. You know what I mean?
Good either.
And by
I know what you mean, but that has its own negative effect.
Right, exactly.
Right. I get that. You know, that's my impulse is I have a non-confrontational, anti-conflict way of being in the world, which means that some things that should just be on the table, period, or a conversation, I will avoid. I'm avoidant.
Right.
So I understand the impulse for sure.
And that always ends up coming out eventually.
If not directly, sideways.
You said it, not me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
We don't argue that much.
No, I know. We don't have a lot of practice at it, which is why sometimes when we do argue, we're not great at it.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
We're really not.
Because it's an anomaly.
Right.
Like, dude, what's your deal?
Right. And it'll usually go that far.
Yeah.
It'll be like, what's your problem? Nothing. Okay. Then next day we're good.
One of the more vulnerable things that you've ever put out into the world, and at least from where I'm sitting, was Before You Call the Cops, the video. I mean, hell, you didn't have a shirt on, you know.
This is true. I was half naked.
And it was real raw and very unprotected.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you know, that went to millions and millions and millions of eyeballs. Why do you think that? I mean, I would say that was like the definition of being vulnerable online. Why do you think that caught such traction? Or if you're just had a
sure.
guess.
I think first it's important that if you're not familiar with Before You Call the Cops, you can literally just pause this and Google Before You Call the Cops and it will come up. But it was a video of me standing, looking just straight into the camera and starting off by saying, before you call the cops, I want you to know. And then I would go through just a simple things like I don't like spiders.
Right.
And
like personal little factoids about you.
Things.
Yeah.
And some things that were comparable. Like I would say I like basketball and also hockey. Or I can tell you every lyric to the NWA Shut Out Compton album, but also every lyric to the musical Oklahoma.
Sure.
And so, but all it was 3 minutes of me looking directly to the camera and talking about myself and then rounding it off by saying, does any of this matter? Not really. I just wanted you to know me better before you call the cops. Yeah. This was my kind of artistic, creative way to fight back to the idea that black men at that period of time were getting pulled over by cops, cops called on them all the time for just existing out in the world.
That's right. Always being suspicious and
Right. And it was my way of just going, I want you to know what's going through my mind before you do that, which later turned into I Take My Coffee Black,
Yeah.
my book, into a broader version of that. The reason why I think people clung to that in such a way, for sure, and this goes without being said, people who were not Black were watching and listening to me, and they were going, this Black man with dreadlocks is not that different from me when it comes to some things.
Sure.
And the reason why that was so important in that very specific moment is because I think it allowed people to go, this guy's vulnerability is allowing me to see myself in him. But I think what was so powerful is even though they were going, we are the same, they were also able to look at the screen and look at me and go, we are so not the same. I have no reason to say a white male in the world right now to go, hey, before you call the cops. But he obviously does, and he's pleading here.
Yeah.
I think for mothers, I think for especially older white women who might be afraid of someone who looked like me, they were going, wait a minute, this guy just said that he feels like if I were to meet his mom, it might change my world, you know? I think my vulnerability and being able to just state the simple as to who I am, even though it could be easily implied and assumed, but because I was saying it, because I was allowing myself to open to the world, they were willing to take that. And then what it did within the Black community is it allowed a lot of other Black people to do mirroring kind of videos to that. People all across America, young people, women and men, who were brown and Black people began making their own videos of going, before you call the cops, I just want you to know this about me. So it opened up a door of vulnerability that really allowed that to kind of echo.
Yeah.
And I think vulnerability begets vulnerability.
I agree.
And before you call the cops did that.
It did. It did. It for sure did. That was a real, turned out to be like a really interesting turning point in your life.
100%. And I'll tell you what's also interesting about that is you have to remember, I didn't set out to go, I'm going to make a video that's going to kind of change the world a little bit during one of the most intense times in American history. I creatively went, I want to tell my story in a way that I think might be impactful.
Yeah.
And I talk about this all the time about how I did it with my shirt off for vulnerability. And my mom to this day is like, why didn't you wear a shirt? And I was like, if I knew 100 million people were going to see it, I would have put a shirt on.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but I didn't know that. And to be honest, it was about one breath of being tossed out and never shown because it was 3 minutes of me talking about myself. And I watched it and went, this is ridiculous. Like nobody's going to want to watch 3 minutes of me talking about myself.
Yeah.
And then I sent it over to my friend Lisa and she replied back to me and she was like, this feels, I forget the exact words now, but either heavenly or an angelic or no, she said, this feels holy.
Holy.
And I was like, well, it feels holy. Cool. I'll post it. And little did I know that video would change my life and kind of change the world a little bit.
This is kind of an ancillary question, but from a broader perspective, then how do you think that telling our personal stories like that, super, super personal, like that was like deep cut on who you were, you know, obviously without any polish, without a mask on, without a shirt on, shit. How do you think that approach changes the way that we see each other, or if it does at all?
First of all, I really believe this. Our stories, though they may seem new, when they're your story and they're told from your perspective and they're told in the best way that you possibly can to project your stories, those are the things that change the world. Even when we look at the history books, all we're doing is reading people's accounts of the stories of things that people have done, right? And even if our stories are familiar. For example, you're about to release a Wake here in a couple of months. And though your particular story may not be new as far as some of the overall themes, the specifics and how you end up communicating them in this beautiful book, those specifics and how you tell your story is going to be the thing that are going to impact us so deeply and so greatly. So I think it's the idea we all have a story to tell, but it's how we tell it, how vulnerable we are when we tell it, and how honest we can be with ourselves. When we are able to do that, other people are able to see themselves in us.
Yeah.
And then they begin to feel less alone. They also begin to feel like they can conquer the hurt that they've gone through because they see that we've come through on the other side. And I think that makes our vulnerability worth it.
Yeah, I agree. And that's its effect on me. When I watch someone else do that in front of me, that is exactly how it impacts me.
Right.
That draws me to them. It does not push me away from them.
Right.
And it opens up some sort of portal for me. And I think that's super powerful. It is indeed contagious and in a good way. Okay, so that moment, that portal opening moment, is exactly why I wanted to share this conversation with you guys. I hope you felt it too. In part 2, we keep going into the personal, the creative, the brave, sometimes scary places that we go when we tell the truth. And I will see you there. So if you go to jenhatmaker.com under the podcast tab, we're going to have this whole show roundup for you. We'll have the notes. We'll have all the links, if you're not already using them, to Tyler's socials and his books and all his good stuff. And then if you want to tell us something, we've got an option for you to leave a message for the show. There's just a send voicemail button. So you just press it and say whatever you want to say for a minute or two. We love those. We love to hear from you. You can say, this is what I loved, or this is what I heard, or I want to say something to you and I want you to hear it. We know this is a way to get to you. Either way, however you want to do it. We really love those submissions. And then, as you know, we periodically round up a whole batch of those and create a listener submitted voicemail episode. So, if we like what you got, girl, you may end up on an episode. So thanks for being with us today. We have tons more to come. This is a very packed month, and next month too, by the way. You're not going to want to miss any shows. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you have subscribed to the show so you won't miss any. Wherever you listen to your podcast, we are excited to bring to you truly some of the best conversations that we have put together. See you next week.